Welcome to Canadian Innovators, the show that celebrates innovation, entrepreneurs, and the Canadian spirit. I'm Ves Sobot, sitting in for Jocelyn Bamford. Every week, we introduce a new entrepreneur, tell their story, and unpack the challenges of keeping jobs in Canada and discuss potential solutions for job growth and prosperity. Before I introduce our guest, let me tell you a little bit about vinyl. For centuries, we looked for a paper that was more robust, cardboard that could withstand the elements, glass that could bend and not break, wood that resisted rot, and steel that wouldn't rust. Then a miracle material made from natural gas and salt called vinyl was invented, which did all of that. Joining us today is one of Canada's most successful entrepreneurs in the vinyl recycling industry, Tribu Persaud of Norwich Plastics, headquartered in Cambridge, Ontario. Norwich Plastics supplies North America with high-quality recycled vinyl resins made in an environmentally responsible manner. Tribu, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Ves.
Please share your story with us on how you got into the business.
Well, our plastics journey started like most immigrant stories start. My parents, they both came, my mom from Trinidad, my dad from Guyana. They came here to study for school. They met while they were studying in Toronto. They fell in love, they dated. My dad got into University of Waterloo. They decided to get married, move in together. Once my dad was married, he had a little more responsibilities, needed to get a job. So he got a job for an automotive parts manufacturer that made plastic parts. While he was there, him and his fellow team members took the scrap from the automotive gas tank shields, and they started making snow shovels for themselves as well as for the neighbors in and around the factory. That was his start in plastic recycling. He took a job with that company, and from 1972 to 1985, he worked tirelessly making automotive parts, but as well introducing recycled content into automotive plastics manufacturing, and working with the OEMs to develop markets for recycled content from the scrap that they were creating from their own process.
When did he start his own enterprise?
In 1985, his company was purchased by another company, and he was basically told by his then new boss at the time that the new company had a glass ceiling and that he'd hit it for people of his heritage. So he decided he would take a package with the company. And in 1987, he teamed up with some business partners, people that he'd met in the industry and people that he knew, friends as well. And they started Norwich Recycling, which was our first venture, first incorporated venture in Woodstock, Ontario. In 1992, we renamed the company Norwich Plastics, moved our headquarters to Cambridge, Ontario. Over the years, we've had several partners, operations, different ventures. Right now, we currently sit with two recycling operations in Ontario, three in Tennessee, and our headquarters and sales offices are in Cambridge.
It would seem to me that a lot of what you had to do was new to the world. You had to innovate. You had to create technologies that didn't exist. Is that correct?
Well, 100%. There was a lot of innovation, but the one thing that I always tell people as a recycler, and my father being a recycler for decades now, we had a very responsive and adaptive industry that listened. And when we came to them with these crazy ideas, they didn't say no. They said, let's try it. And it was through that trial and error and just trying different things that we've been able to develop a company that is now recycling about 50 million pounds of vinyl per year, diverting it from landfill.
50 million pounds diverted from landfill. What do some of those products, or what do some of the resins that go into to make new useful products?
A lot of the materials that we're recycling are going into circular applications. So if it was a building and construction geomembrane, synthetic membrane, or roofing membrane, those things go right back into their original use.
Those are long-life products.
Yeah, long-lasting products. They tend to go up on a building and stay there for decades, if not hundreds of years. And then we also do flooring products. There's consumer products. Huge market for recycled content is garden hose, massive market, and it has been for decades. Like I mentioned, flooring products, automotive. vinyl is everywhere in our lives, and everywhere that it's being used, we can use recycled content.
So true. It's an ubiquitous material. Folks, we'll be right back. Stay with us. We'll be right back shortly with Canadian Innovators. Tell us about the medical recycling that I understand you do now as well. And it's new to the world, and it's garnering some attention all over the world.
Well, that program is a very interesting program. It's kind of something very close to my heart, as well as my father's. We've been trying to recycle medical materials in North America basically since we started recycling PVC. Our first trials were in the mid-90s. We kind of ran as fast as we could, ran into a wall a couple times, but we learned a lot of lessons. In 2014, we were approached by Dr. Ali Abbas, an anesthesiologist over at St. Joe's Hospital in Toronto. And Dr. Abbas and us and Norwich worked together, and we came up with a program or a system that worked very well. And with this in hand, we were able to go to the Vinyl Institute of Canada, where Anya Curran, she used her magic, for lack of a better term, to help us take the program at one hospital, and we launched the PVC 123 medical recycling pilot.
During a very difficult time, I believe.
Yeah.
During
Well,
COVID, right?
yeah. In 2019, we pitched it to Environment and Climate Change Canada. We got approval for 2020. The official product launch was March of 2020, 5 days before everything shut down. I think it was the 15th of March. But we were able to launch the program during COVID. It was a tremendous challenge. However, it was kind of like the field of dreams. If you build it, they will come. Our goal was to get 5 GTA facilities on board within a year. We were able to get 16.
16 first time out.
Yeah. And that's during COVID. That's when day surgeries are shut down. That's when hospitals, nurses are under increased protocol. So we were able to do that.
And what sort of products were you picking up in recycling?
Nasal cannulas, Ventolin masks, non-controlled medications that come in the bags, the saline bags.
All vinyl products.
All vinyl products. Resuscitators, tubing, air tubing. There's so much tubing, and we've been able to work with the hospitals, work with the ERs, work with the ICUs, work with the PACUs. We're even doing work with dialysis now, so PVC coming out of dialysis applications. Over the last year, we're actually at about 30 facilities in Ontario. We're speaking to facilities across the country to get this thing going and get it going. Because at the end of the day, vinyl recycling has been happening in North America for decades. There's well-established markets for recycled PVC, and PVC recyclers need materials.
Vinyl is a valuable material even after its end use, obviously. So tell me, you have over 30 hospitals now working on this. Are they saving any money by recycling vinyl?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, we're not charging for the pickups of the material. So what they would generally pay in landfill costs or waste management costs, that cost is being avoided, and we're able to reclaim the material and put it back into products that are going to last another 50, 60 years.
So not only are you solving a waste disposal issue for them, they're actually being able to divert resources to other areas that are of greater need, and everybody wins in the process, it seems.
Well, that's the sustainability story, right? That's why that's why we've been doing PVC reclaim and recycling forever, because it's a dynamic polymer that can be reclaimed and remelted, repolymerized. We can add what's missing, for lack of a better term. And we can take materials that are rigid and make them flexible, and we can take flexible material and use them in rigid applications. It's a very dynamic polymer when it comes to recycling.
Any plans of doing this in the United States?
Well, we're currently operating 3 facilities in Tennessee. There's a saying in plastic recycling that the mouth goes where the soup leaks. Given the size of the U.S. market and the fact that there's so much plastics manufacturing being done down there, as well as the size of the post-consumer market, it only makes sense that we'll go where the opportunity arises. But at the end of the day, it's about Canada has an advantage because we're years ahead of the United States when it comes to municipal collection and municipal recycling. There's some states in America that still, some areas that still don't even have that. They don't even have a blue box program.
So true.
You know,
this is another beautiful example of how Canadian innovation is helping our American friends too.
Yeah.
Stay right there. We're going to be back in a moment with Tribu, Persaud, and Norwich Plastics. Welcome back. I'm Ves Sobot. My guest today is Tribu Persaud of Norwich Plastics, Canadian leader in plastics recycling. Before the break, we were talking about the challenges of Canadian business today. I understand Norwich Plastics has a joint venture in Tennessee that you were mentioning. How do you find doing business in the United States versus Canada?
Well, I mean, the lower tax rate in the U.S. definitely makes things a little easier for us. The lack of carbon taxes and the overall, I find, more friendlier attitude towards the plastics industry. I think that makes things easier for us. But in the end, as a small business and a small business owner, the most attractive thing for us is the incentives that U.S. states and regions offer Canadian businesses to relocate.
So they compete hard for Canadian business.
Absolutely. Tax breaks, incentives, helping with paying for new jobs and labor and training, those kinds of things. You know, we've been operating in Canada for 30 plus years, and I've never had another province or another region or anything anything like that, you know, approach us to say, hey, expand here or relocate here or grow your business here, and we can offer you something. It seems that our experience in Canada is, you know, when you expand here, it's development fees and regulations, red tape.
A lot of gatekeepers.
A lot of gatekeepers,
right?
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're considering expanding in the United States.
Well, I mean, like I said, the mouth goes where the soup leaks, you know?
Right.
So that's kind of, and anywhere there's opportunity to divert materials from landfill, we'll definitely, you know, look to lead the charge.
Now, you were mentioning about regulations. What is it about the American system that makes it more friendly for plastics recyclers, plastics manufacturers?
Well, I think that in Canada we have a very strong anti-plastics lobby, and I think that has affected governments and institutions and policymakers into knee-jerk reactions that may not be in our best interest and best benefit when fully evaluated. You know, we're talking about bans here in Canada, regulations, registries, things that are not imposed on other materials.
Right.
And they're not imposed in forest jurisdictions. So that makes it, you know, doing a business in Canada in those aspects somewhat uncompetitive and a little more burdensome than in other
Plastics
markets.
are so ubiquitous, it's just impossible to ban them. I mean, it's a part of modern society today. We have to work on improving how we manage them at the end of life, and that's really your art. That's what you do all the time. Tell me, is there carbon taxes in the United States? Are there those kind of taxes that are imposed in the United States as well, or is that just Canada?
Well, I mean, in the U.S., they haven't imposed carbon taxes that I'm aware of yet. You know, but it goes to more than just carbon taxes. You know, one of the issues that we have as a business is getting employees, right? Well, all the anti-plastics rhetoric, all the anti-plastics words that are coming out and policies that are coming out from our government doesn't inspire Canadians to work for a plastic recycler.
Right.
And we're the ones doing the sustainability side of the business. Imagine a company making manufactured products or making resin. You know, you have people coming in saying, I don't want to be part of this industry that's bad for the world. When the exact opposite is true for the most part, when compared to other competing materials, plastics have a lower carbon footprint, right, in their manufacture. And unlike many other competing materials, plastics can be recycled.
And you've proven it, 50 million pounds a year. Just an extraordinary success story. And the recycling program with hospitals is really a cherry on the cake, is it not? Tell me, coming into the studio today, I just heard that diesel fuel is going to be in short supply. Is that going to affect your operations both in Canada and the United States, or what do you make of that?
Well, I mean, everything has to get transported to us or to our customers. At the end of the day, diesel fuel and fuel rates are going to affect not just recycling, but the entire value chain, as well as every single citizen in our country. We are all dependent on materials, products. You know, we live in a country that's cold 6 months of the year, and we have mangoes and fruit. You know, in our grocery stores, these things come from trucks. These things come from transportation, and diesel is what brings them. The scary thing that I find with Canada.
Hold your thought.
Okay.
And we'll bring it right back right after the break.
All right.
Welcome back. Tribu, I just want to pick up where we left off. You were talking about energy prices and the government's role in energy. Please, if you can just sort of finish that thought for our viewers.
I mean, 20 days supply of diesel, had we not canceled all those energy projects like Keystone, we probably would have been in a much better situation. I think that we really have to, spend some time as a society and figure out what we're going to need energy-wise and make the hard decisions.
That is so true, and it's never been more obvious than today. There's no question. This is the part of the show that I enjoy the most. We get to ask our guest, what 3 things would they do to grow jobs in the economy if they were prime minister for a day? So Tribu, you're on the hot seat. What 3 things would you do if you were king for a day?
All right. Well, the first thing I would do is I would take the opportunity to remind the Canadian citizenry that we don't just vote on voting days. We vote every single day, and we vote with our dollars and our time. Our dollars that we spend every day, they should reflect our beliefs. They should reflect the things that better us, our families, and our country. And I think that as Canadians, we miss that opportunity every single day.
I never thought of it that way. Every time we spend $1, that's actually a vote. We should think hard when we vote.
Yeah.
Great point. Great point.
The second thing is I would change the way government spends money. My experience with the hospital programs and other departments is when you pitch a cost savings idea, you get told back that, well, that really doesn't equate to things because we run on a budget, and if I don't spend my budget this year, I don't get it back next year. I would change that to reward departments, public sector departments that come in under budget. I wouldn't penalize them. I wouldn't give them less the next year. In fact, I would look to give them more to see if they can get more efficiency and still provide the same level of service.
Change the incentive structure for them.
That's right. Because at the end of the day, nobody wants to waste money, and I don't think any government wants to waste taxpayer money. And then the last thing that I would do is not only remind the citizenry that we have the power to vote with our dollars, but we live in a great country that has tremendous methods and different ways to communicate with your varying levels of government, varying levels, municipal, provincial, federal, regulators, ministries. They all have open websites, open communication channels, phone numbers to call, ombudsmen. They all have these things. Instead of, doing the cool social media thing or hit the streets on a protest, try the methodologies that we have established within our society to affect change.
So we shouldn't be passive citizens. We should be active citizens.
Well, without active citizenry, what kind of country do we have?
Right. And that's true democracy, when everybody actually takes responsibility for the country that they live in and tries to improve it on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's right.
Fantastic notions. I hope to see the day when more of that happens
Same.
in Canada for sure. I've always thought we're very blessed to live in this country. It has all the resources any country could possibly imagine. We have the third largest energy reserves in the world. We have natural gas reserves that will last 500 years. And yet somehow there's always barriers to exploiting all of that, put in by ourselves, not by enemy combatants, but by ourselves, our own bureaucracy, our own people. A friend of mine once came from Kuwait and said to me, why doesn't everybody drive a Mercedes in Canada? Because we all do in Kuwait. We all share the oil reserves. Well, could you imagine if we decided not share the oil reserves per se, but if we took the taxes from oil reserves, doubled the output, and applied them to our deficit and our debt, we could be debt-free in about 5 to 10 years with excellent management.
Excellent, 100%.
Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. We will be back in a moment, and we will conclude today's episode of Canadian Innovators. Thank you to my guest, Tribu Persaud of Norwich Plastics, based in Cambridge, Ontario. I'm Ves Sobot, sitting in for Jocelyn Bamford. Thank you for watching Canadian Innovators. If you're an innovator, tell us your story. Write to us at ideas@thenewsforum.ca. That's ideas@thenewsforum.ca. And maybe we'll see you on the show next time. Thanks again.